We've pruned the rest of the block. You guys can see that it's all pruned. We just left a few vines so we can do a demonstration for you guys, and then we'll go to the cane pruning, and I'll explain each type of pruning. So this is one of the most important tasks that we do in the vineyard. It's the very first task that we do, was removing the canes that grew last year. So this is a cane, this is a spur, this little guy, and this is a cordon arm. So it's spur prune, cordon pruning. So we want to prune these down so we don't have abundance amount of canes, so we'll have too many clusters and they'll just be little tiny guys. We want to focus our clusters down on the spurs next to the cordon arm. When you're pruning, we want to make sure that they're even and they're not crossing over or going into the stake. What happens is when the cluster actually gets big, they'll touch each other and you have a chance of botrytis or not enough sunlight hitting the whole cluster itself. The cluster needs full sunlight, 360 degrees around it. So that's why we do a lot of canopy management after the clusters have set. So we want to position our clusters. So for instance, these two here, I would take that one and that one, and I wouldn't take these two going that way. Now I can use this one. So these two are positioned evenly. I have a big bald spot here, so I probably would do that, and I'd leave a little nub there for next year, so I can maybe take that off and use this guy for next year. We touch the vines probably 6 to 7 times a year. So each time we go through, we want to position things, and I like everything consistent. If you can see, all my vines are the same size. I like the bud break to be even. But for the most part, I strive for consistency the very first task all the way through to harvest, so we can get consistent wines. But coming through here with all this congestiveness, you know, you really have to have an eye for pruning, with whether you prune trees or in your yard landscaping, and you probably, a lot of you guys know that. It's really important. So our guys are really, really sharp at that. Just want to show you. So the overall health of the vine is important, not to make big cuts. So typically I like everybody to use their small shears. It's harder on your hand. A lot of guys like to use the bigger ones, so I'm adamant about little ones and not using those big ones. And the bigger cuts have just been horrible on some of our vineyards. But to prune 1 million some odd plants takes a lot of work and a lot of time. And you can see I'm positioning each spur so they're either not going away from each other, but straight up. You don't like them to lay down, because then you get consistent, you get that congestiveness. It's really important where the bud is here, is not to prune it so it's slanted, and when the vine starts to push, it'll push a little sap there, and if it rests on that bud, it'll rot that bud and you've lost your 2 clusters. So it's really important to go opposite so it drains that way as opposed to on the first bud there, because it'll sit there and get wet and then it'll never have a chance to bud out. So that was Cabernet Sauvignon, this is Chardonnay. The Chardonnay is east facing. It's a little bit cooler than that with a different row direction. You can see these have started to bud out and all the clusters are coming. Yeah, and we're getting 2 clusters, 3 clusters per shoot, which is big yields, but that doesn't mean that we might not run into hail this week or rain during flowering or during bloom. So that could really adjust our yields and knock us back. Typically on cane pruning, you don't want a big, you want a sun cane. If it's a big bull cane, we call them, that means it was full of shade and they're usually unfruitful. During flowering, which is bloom time around May, is when you make your crop for the next year. The sun hits that. It's really important to have a lot of sunlight on these canes so they're fruitful for 2015. So 2014 bloom time, we make sure that we're opened up, our canopies are opened up, full exposure for enough sunlight to produce the crop for the following year. Last year's flowering had beautiful weather. We've got great crop. The year before that, 2012, had beautiful weather for 13. So we're hoping during May that we have some great weather, warm, a lot of sunlight, so we can have a great crop for 2015. So we're always thinking almost a year ahead when you're pruning and when you're doing your canopy management. You've got your fruit. We've got great potential this year, and hopefully we will for next year. So on cane pruning, you want to leave there's no spurs. You want to leave just one little cane. And you want to choose your cane that's closest to the head. And you like to have it about as big as around, a little bit more than a pencil. That means it's really fruitful if it's that small. If it's a little bit smaller, then it's going to be weaker, and it could be a little bit too much yield for the vine. So you want a strong cane, but not a bull cane. So for me, what I would do is probably choose this guy and this guy. And you would come in, remove the cane from last year, remove all the stuff around the head, so now we're left with two canes that we would tie down. We would come in and we'd just tie that cane, and then we're done, right? And then you take the cane to there, and then you tie them down. So another, once again, good eye for a fruitful cane. You could send some people in here and we could prune and they could choose the wrong canes and it could drop us back 2 or 3 tons to the acre. It'd be a lot of, we'd lose a lot of yield. So really good eye for pruning. And a lot of times, this one seems a little bit more vigorous than that one. So what I might do is leave a spur and a short cane, just to get a little yield and to balance the plant so it doesn't all grow into brush and we could pick up a bull cane. So we'd be half as much crop as that. This would be half as much as this. But, typically you could do that, get 2, 4, 6 clusters. And on here you would take 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 20 clusters at 0.36 pounds. So double the amount that we had on this Spur Prune Cordon. And that's about it as far as pruning. If anybody has any questions, I know you guys are probably cold and want to get out of here, but